doing it. All right, so it's Holy Week. It is Holy Week. That begins with Palm Sunday. That is to celebrate, for those of you who, don't know anything about anything, that celebrates the day that Jesus entered Jerusalem. He was welcomed by the crowds. They waved palms in celebration. They threw clothes down to make a way for his donkey to come into town. And the same mob, basically, a couple days later, was calling for his crucifixion. So it is the fickleness of the crowd. And all week we will be celebrating this. It obviously ends in Good Friday, which is the day of the crucifixion, and then goes into Easter Sunday, the day of the resurrection. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this because I guess these stories have been much on my mind because it's Lent, but they've also been much on my mind because I find that I'm having very new and rich insights that are improving my life and are deepening my joy in my relationship with God, but also in my relationship with the world. And I just want to think about this out loud for a while and see if it's helpful at all. One of the things about Jesus's life is that in many ways, and this is not an original thought on my part, but it reiterates the Old Testament. There's language in his baptism, in the story of Jesus' baptism, that echoes the language that's used in Genesis for the creation of the world. And it's supposed to reflect that. He has 12 disciples in the same way there were 12 tribes of Israel. And his death is talked about, happened on Passover, and is talked about as the Passover sacrifice. When they say in Catholic, or in what I'm in an Anglo-Catholic church, when they take the Mass, they say Christ, our Passover, is sacrificed for us. And the Passover, of course, was when the Jews were freed from slavery in Egypt. And so as God freed the Jews from physical slavery in Egypt, Jesus frees all of us from our spiritual slavery to sin. But one of the ways that I don't hear them talking about a lot is the way Jesus reiterates the burning bush. To me, the story of the burning bush is maybe the most profound, maybe next to the creation story in Genesis, the story of the fall. It is one of the most profound moments in the Old Testament. Moses, or Charlton Heston, depending on what you believe, has escaped from Egypt. He's killed an Egyptian slave driver, and he has to run away. He marries a woman and marries the daughter of a rich, what would you call him? A shepherd, I guess. He's got a large flock, and he goes out to tend the flock. And Moses was tending the flock, reading from the Bible. He was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, and Moses said, Here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place that you are standing on is holy ground. And then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, and later he said to God, Suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I tell them? And God said to Moses, I am that I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. And Jesus often echoes that I am statement. There are a lot of I am statements in the New Testament. I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the way and the truth and the life. I am the resurrection and the life. He's always saying I am and echoing that I am. And the reason I feel that this is such a profound moment is Moses is looking at a model, a metaphor of the creative, destructive process that is the ongoing world of nature. There's a fire that consumes the bush, but the bush is never consumed, just as things are always being destroyed in nature, and yet nature itself continues. And that process itself, out of that process, a voice speaks and says, I am. Out of that process, a voice speaks and says, this is not a blind process. It looks like a blind, random, eternal, meaningless process of destruction and creation, meaning nothing. But in fact, it is the expression of a personality. I am, the personality that will send you into Egypt to free your people, the personality that loves you, the personality that created you for freedom, the personality that created everything. That is a different way to look at the world, right? The world is either, as some scientists see it, just a series of processes that are meaningless and just go on because they go on and have an internal logic and that's it, or it is the expression of a creative personality that loves you and wants you to be free. I am. And Jesus, in dying and being resurrected, reiterates the burning bush. He reiterates that in your death, in a person's death, is also life. In a person's death and life, there is meaning. There is that I am. And that to me, the seemingly meaningless process of living and dying is not a meaningless process, because in you and in him, there is this I am. There is an I am of the process itself, and there is the I am of your particular life. And that seems to me to be the two different ways of living, right? It is living as if your life and everything around you is this mindless process that has no meaning, or it's living in the sense that it and you are the expression of a personality. It is the expression of a personality, and I am of love and freedom and creativity that is calling on you to be, in your life and your death, to be an eternal expression of love and freedom and creativity. Think about it for a moment to yourself. Which one sounds like a better life? Which one sounds like it's going to give you a better life? It's all about faith. It's all about believing. But when you have that attitude, which one of those is going to be a better life? A thought for the first day of, I guess it's the second day of Holy Week. I don't know how you measure it. And I will have some more thoughts tomorrow. I'm Andrew Klavan. This is The Andrew Klavan Show, and we will see you then.